Hello and welcome to Louis Philippe in Pursuit of Excellence. My guest today is truly a pioneer. He has created an industry that perhaps at the time India didn't even recognize or look at as a possible growth industry, the IT industry. And the name Narayana Murthy resonates across the world. NRN, may I call you NRN?
Please,
It
please.
seems we've always followed you only in the press, only in talks. It is a real pleasure to see you in person.
Well, I must say it's a great privilege for me to sit here with you.
Just coming back to your early life and growing in Karnataka, you're very much sort of associated with Bangalore. But your early life was pretty much all across Karnataka.
Yeah, my father was a very junior civil servant. He was, for most of his career, a high school teacher. And therefore, in keeping with the norm those days, we would be transferred once in 3 years from one small place to another. So most of my growing up time I spent in Mofussil areas in Karnataka. But towards the end of 50s, we moved over to Mysore city, which is of course one of the biggest cities in the state. And we spent about 9 years there. I did my last year of high school, pre-university, as well as my engineering studies out there before I went on to go to Kanpur.
So then you went on to IIT Kanpur, that sort of got its claim to fame after you came out of IIT Kanpur. Is it fair to say that?
No, I think IIT Kanpur is truly an extraordinary institution, particularly IIT Kanpur of the 60s, because at that time, a program called Kanpur Indo-American Program was in play, which meant that 8 of the finest universities in the US, they sent professors to IIT Kanpur. They contributed by way of computers. They contributed by way of books from the library. We used to get books at 1/3 the dollar price. In other words, for a book that costed those days $4.50, we used to just pay pay just 4 rupees and 50 paise.
Incredible.
So it was a fantastic time.
When you finished with IIT Kanpur, and at that time, what were your thoughts? What was going through your mind? Was it something that you wanted to start up? Did you want to work someplace, get experience?
No, I think at that point of time, in the first couple of semesters, I did lots of courses in control theory, which is basically mathematics. And then I had the occasion to listen to a very famous professor from Princeton who spoke about how computers would change our lives. I went to the library, read a few papers that he suggested, and on Monday morning, I went to my professor and said, look, I want to change computer science. He was a very kind man and he agreed. Then when I finished my studies at Kanpur, I went to Institute of Management Ahmedabad because they were installing the first time sharing system in the country. I had the opportunity to write some software like compilers and interpreters and operating system, etc. At that point in time, I had an option to go and do my PhD at Techni in Israel, but I chose to take up a job in Paris. So that's how it went.
And eventually, when all of this knowledge that you acquired and the experience, you went off and started your first company.
Yeah, in some sense, it was my experience in Paris. It was the conversations that I had with the left, right, and the center, with some of the tough situations that I encountered when I was hitchhiking from Paris to Mysore, that transformed me from what I term as a confused leftist to a determined, compassionate capitalist. And I decided to conduct an experiment in entrepreneurship when I went back to India, because by then I was convinced that the only way societies can solve the problem of poverty is through creation of jobs, and the only way you can create jobs is through entrepreneurship. That's how Infosys was born.
So, as we look back, in the first company that you started, Softronics, you were at it for a year and a half.
Yeah.
What did you learn from that initial beginning?
Well, I realized that no matter how smart your idea is, the market must be ready for it. Somebody must be willing to pay the required price for your services. And I realized pretty quickly that India was still not ready for software. And that's when I said, look, I should look at the export market. And in order for me to look at the export market, I should have some experience in working in a larger corporation. I need to understand how things happen, and I need to travel abroad a lot, etc. That's how I closed Softronics and then went and joined the Patni Computer Systems group as the head of software. And I learned a lot from there. I'm very grateful to Mr. Ashok Patni, who was an extraordinary boss. And that's where I met a set of youngsters who were very bright, smart, and that's how it led to the founding of Infosys.
So, coming back to 1981, of course, it was a golden year in the start of Infosys when you all got together with your colleagues and so on. When you got together, what were you trying to create at this point?
Well, we wanted to conduct an experiment that demonstrated that you can indeed create global quality enterprises in India, that you can indeed, benchmark yourselves with the global benchmarks in terms of quality, in terms of human resources practices, in terms of customer experience, and that it was possible to run an enterprise legally and ethically in India. And finally, it was also an affirmation of my belief that you can indeed create jobs and serve the country by creating this enterprise.
But did you feel that, one, the country was ready for it, two, that you would get that export market, and three, most importantly, were you able to forecast this boom in the IT industry?
Well, first of all, the market was in some sense getting ready because of introduction of super mini computers, because of introduction of database monitors for transaction processing on these super mini computers, because the American enterprises embrace new technology wholeheartedly, and because in India we had a large number of well-trained youngsters who are very hungry for jobs. However, I don't think any one of us ever thought that we would get to where we did by the year 2010, in 1981. All that we knew was that we would run an enterprise legally and ethically. We will seek respect from every stakeholder, and that we would demonstrate to ourselves that it is possible to benchmark oneself on a global level.
Let's discuss for a moment the competition and growth in the IT industry.
Well, as well-known economists, starting right from the days of Adam Smith, have said, competition is extremely important for growth. Competition leads to better prices for customers. Competition leads to better quality for customers. Competition therefore expands the customer base, and therefore competition leads to growth. So I am extremely happy that we welcomed competition as early as 1992, post the liberalization, wherein we were very happy that IBM's, Accenture's, Microsoft's, and other big companies came to India. They started their captive units, and there were lots of things that we learned from them. There were a few that we contributed to. And then we realized that if we have to survive and succeed in the face of competition from these extraordinary giants, then we had to create some unique value proposition. That's how we created the first software campus in India. That's how we created a large experiment in democratization of wealth through stock options. That's how we embraced quality. That's how we spend a lot of money on hiring consultants in marketing. So I think everything happened for the better thanks to competition from world famous competitors.
Now, as you competed with the rest of the world for the business, and you're obviously price sensitive, you quality was at the highest level, as you talked about, and so on. America started to feel it locally in the US.
Sure.
And jobs started to go out.
Sure.
Obviously, business started to go out.
Yeah.
Sort of became almost a thorn in the side of the US government because they started talking about it. They talk about going to Bangalore and not to Boston and so on and so forth. Did that make you feel good? Did that make you feel like, yes, we were one of the best in the world now?
I have personally argued that as a foreigner, I have no role in commenting on the policies of the US government. Having said that, I've also been arguing that we should add more and more value to our customers from India. That is where I am not a great proponent of so-called on-site services. I believe that we can provide better quality software at better prices from India, and we should spend minimum effort abroad at customer locations, and for those we should recruit local people. I think if we recruited local people for our on-site part of our services and we focused on delivering better and better value from India, I think everybody will be a winner. We will not be the targets of dissatisfaction by the various opinion makers in our market. And I think that's what we should do.
Is it something that is sort of been at the back of your mind? You stepped out of the executive position, you came back in, and then you've obviously served in numerous capacities, chairman emeritus. But it's a baby that you started.
Of course.
And it's obviously always going to be close to your heart. Do you see Infosys having great management, great future from here on in for the next decade?
I think Infosys will have a great future. We have an excellent CEO in Dr. Vishal Sikka. He is an extraordinary individual. Somebody who did a very good PhD in artificial intelligence from Stanford, somebody who had occupied the highest level in terms of being a member of the board of directors of SAP, somebody who brings new ideas to the table in every conversation, somebody who is in a hurry to do better things. So therefore, I believe that as long as Vishal is the CEO, there will be a great future for Infosys.
Interesting. You've had a lot of interesting quotes that is sort of attributed to yourself. The one that several of them strike my mind, come into my mind, and I've seen some of them. But one of them, you said, fall in love with the job. Don't fall in love with the company because you never know when the company is going to stop loving you.
No, I think that was somewhat misquoted. What I meant was that, look, at the end of the day, we are all professionals. If you act as a professional, you will give back the best value for money to the company. You will balance between your work and life. You will not spend unnecessarily long hours in the office because you want to be as productive as possible. And you will conduct yourself as the finest professional and the finest citizen of whatever country you belong to with your customers and in every situation. So therefore, it is very, very important that you are in love with your profession first, and then other things will automatically follow.
talking about your wonderful wife, Sudha, and an incredible partner in life for you, and right from the very beginning, the start of Infosys, and so on. Has it been a partnership as far as both business is concerned, the growth of business, the idea eventually of philanthropy, and how you all would work together?
Well, right from day one, she was a partner in the sense she supported my endeavor. She made huge sacrifices, and later on, she became the chairperson of the Infosys Foundation. So I think in that sense, she has been a very, very useful partner.
Absolutely, no question. Uh, Tell me about your kids, Rohan and Akshita, and what where their interests lie, and how do you see their growth for the next generation?
Well, I think Rohan has a first class PhD in computer science. He is a member of the Society of Fellows, which is a very, very prestigious position. They select 12 to 15 people out of 600 to 700 PhDs that apply every year. He's also eclectic interest. He's started the Murthy Classical Library of India to bring classics in various Indian languages and Persian to the awareness of the common man by providing English translations. My daughter, she is now settled down in the UK because her husband is fighting an election for the parliament in the month of May. We keep our fingers crossed. I hope he wins. He is taken over from William Hague, the former foreign secretary, in Richmond, Yorks. That's his constituency.
You've had numerous accolades. I mean, it's hard to kind of list them or count them. Incredible number of doctorates. Of course, the highlight being a Padma Vibhushan by the government of India, a CBE by the UK government, and numerous others, Icon of the Year, Indian of the Year, and so on and so forth. How do you respond to accolades?
In some way, it makes you compare yourself with people that are better than you on a global basis and realize that you've been very lucky in receiving some of those things, and that you have a lot more to do. So therefore, and also finally, it instills in you a sense of gratitude to the society. That's what I would say.
In the past years, there was a gentleman who read the news on American television by the name of Walter Cronkite. And I'm sure
Of course.
you've heard of the great CBS anchor.
I have listened to him several times. Yeah.
Walter Cronkite. But the thing that the world felt, and certainly
That's the way it
America
was
exactly.
this evening or whatever.
Exactly.
He always said that. Yeah.
The way he ended the broadcast.
Yeah.
And one of the things always attributed to Walter Cronkite was the people's trust in him when he said something. And when he said something, it meant something.
Yeah, of course.
And to a great extent, when we look at Narayana Murthy, we think of that element of trust. And when you say something, it means something. And how do we see, as we move forward in the coming decades, that element of trust? Has it been eroded to a great extent within our hierarchy? Is it a lot more something that we need to look at closely?
In business, trust is very important. Therefore, if India wants to create economic growth, then it has to attract lots of business people, both from the domestic market as well as from outside. For it to happen, India has to become trustworthy. India's words, the words of the government, whether party X is in power or party Y is in power, will have to be totally trusted. India cannot afford to go back on its words like they did a few years ago in trying to reopen the tax rules. I don't think these are things that will enhance the trust, because there are many other countries in the world today which provide opportunities for foreign business people or for even Indian business people to invest in. So therefore, we have to become totally trustworthy if we have to solve the problem of poverty. That is extremely important. Unfortunately, you're right. It is becoming more and more and more difficult to trust the Indian government. Of course, this government is trying to do certain things to bring back the good old days, but still, I think we have gone down so low that it will take some time for India to bring back the trust.
Did you suddenly, I mean, when this issue with the Mahatma Gandhi statue came up in London, that you immediately thought that this is something that needs to be done and helped fund it right off the bat? Is that something that you see around the world that is of importance to you to highlight what we have in our country?
Well, my logic was that when the British government showed its generosity by allocating a space for the statue of Mahatma Gandhi right in front of their parliament, which is the oldest parliament in the world, along with Winston Churchill, Nelson Mandela, Abraham Lincoln, Jan Smuts, I felt that all of us should in some way contribute towards that effort. Here is this UK government, it's been very generous. That's how we did that.
Because that means a lot to Indians, obviously, living in every part of the world.
Yeah, because, you go to Parliament Square, not just Indians, so many people would see that statue. It's at a very great location, right in the front. And that statue is a great statue. It's the statue modeled on the photograph that was taken when Mahatma Gandhi just walked out of number 10 when he had gone for the round table conference or something like that. So I think it's a great one.
Finally, NRN, as we've started this interview, this show is about the quest for excellence. How do we pursue it for a youngster? How do we generate that interest in a youngster to pursue what his dreams and to be excellent at it, whether it's sport or business or entertainment or whatever else? What would you say was your defining moment in your pursuit of excellence?
I think in 1992, when my friends told me that IBM, Citigroup, Digital Equipment Corporation, many of the large corporations from the US were coming to India, coming to Bangalore, and therefore they will take away all our good people, therefore we will soon have to shut shop. Then my colleagues and I, we sat down and said, look, what is it that we can do so that we can indeed succeed in this strangling environment? That's when we started thinking of our own USP, our own uniqueness in terms of what we offer to our employees. And that's when we realized that the only way we can survive and succeed today in the global market is if we benchmark ourselves in every dimension on a global basis. That's how we took great ideas from Motorola in quality. We took great ideas from Hewlett Packard those days in human resources practices. We learned a lot from both Microsoft and GE in terms of their relentless focus on growth and earnings per share quarter after quarter. So there were lots of things that we learned from by global benchmarking, and I think that is what is needed today. And also a very important point, that is, we were humble. We had humility. Once you have humility, then you open your mind to learn from people who are better than us. Unfortunately, humility is not a great attribute of Indians. We celebrate small victories, we become conceited. So therefore, I think we have to be humble. We have to show humility, because humility helps us to respect people who are better than us, to learn from them. So this is something that we did all the time.
Final question, however you would like to portray it, the future of India and the next generation?
The future of India will be secure if we become more humble, if we are more open minded, if we work hard, if we are disciplined, if we benchmark ourselves with the global best, and if we realize Andy Grove's words that only the paranoids survive. So as long as we keep saying, what is it that we do so that tomorrow nobody will take away lunch from us? How do we improve? How do we create further barrier between us and the next person? I think then there will be a future. But that's not an easy one to do in India. Tough one.
We just need more Narayana Murthys.
Well, you're very kind, but we need more Vijay Amritraj, I think.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You can also watch this episode online at louisphilippe.com.